Hey guys, Jim again from IAG and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be installing this version 3 air oil separator on a 2019 Subaru WRX. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more install videos and educational content. With that being said, let's jump right in. Before we get started, let's take a look inside the box. So grab your razor blade or a pair of scissors. Be sure to reference the inventory spreadsheet on page 2 of the written instructions found on our website. Now that we've confirmed all the parts, let's take a look at the tools needed to do the job. 10mm wrench, 1/4 inch 10mm socket, 1/4 inch extension, 1/4 inch ratchet, pocket screwdriver, clip removal pliers, a pick, 3/8 inch 12mm socket, 3/8 inch extension, 3/8 inch ratchet, hose clamp pliers, flathead screwdriver, 3/8 19mm socket, a pair of cutters, needle nose pliers, 5mm Allen, a torque wrench, 3/8 14mm socket, hose cutters, hose pinch pliers, 1/8 inch Allen head, and assembly lube. Let's take a closer look at the pliers. The tool used in this application is referred to as a multi-directional hose clamp plier. The two intersecting grooves at the head of this tool allow for a firm grip on the hose clamps and can be used either head-on or parallel to the hoses. To get a set of your own, be sure to click on the link below. The first thing we'll do is disconnect the negative terminal on the battery using a 10mm wrench or socket. Remove the two clips securing the engine cover. This can be done with either a pair of clip removal pliers or a flathead screwdriver. Lift up on the front side of the engine cover to remove. Using your clip pliers or flathead, remove the two clips attaching the intake snorkel to the vehicle. Now remove the snorkel. Disconnect the passenger side cooling fan connector. A pick may be helpful. Loosen and remove the two 10mm bolts attaching the passenger side cooling fan to the radiator. Carefully remove the cooling fan assembly from the vehicle. Next, remove the two 12mm bolts attaching the turbo outlet to the charge pipe located at the front of the engine. Disconnect the white PCV connector at the turbo inlet. Using a pair of pliers, release the clamp attaching the blow-off valve to the turbo inlet. Remove the evap hose from the turbo inlet, as well as the vacuum line attached to the blow-off valve. With a flathead screwdriver, release the band clamp on the intercooler. With all of the hardware and hoses disconnected, pull up on the front of the charge pipe until the blow-off valve is freed from the turbo inlet. Remove the charge pipe from the intercooler. After removal, inspect the sealing ring located inside the charge pipe. Be sure it is seated properly so that we don't have any issues later during the installation. Locate the white PCV connector you removed earlier. Release the attached hose from its clip and bring the assembly to the top of the engine. Using your pliers and a flathead screwdriver, remove the band clamp from the white connector. Remove the white PCV connector and the clamp from the hose. Now we can start to remove the intercooler. Loosen and remove the 12mm bolt located on the passenger side. Move to the driver's side and remove the other 12mm bolt. Remove the brake booster hose from its clip. Then, loosen and remove the two 12mm bolts securing the intercooler bracket to the intake manifold. Remove the bracket from the vehicle. With your flathead screwdriver, loosen the driver's side band clamp from the intercooler. Remove the intercooler by lifting up, then pushing towards the firewall. Removal of the EGR pipe from the back of the intake manifold is recommended to gain working space for the next few steps. Remove the 4 12mm bolts and keep a good eye on the gasket and O-ring. You will be reusing these when reinstalling. Using your pliers, remove the clamp attaching the hose to the PCV valve located on top of the block. Remove the hose from the valve. Using a 19mm socket, remove the PCV valve from the engine. Locate the threaded and barbed fitting from your kit and install into the hole that the PCV valve was removed from. With the same 19mm socket, torque your new barb fitting to 15 foot-pounds. With a pair of pliers, remove the clamp from the intake manifold side of the PCV hose. Rotate this hose 90 degrees until the small end of the hose is pointed at the pitch stop mount. Now reinstall the larger clamp. You can now reinstall your EGR pipe back into the intake manifold and to the valve. Once again, you will be reusing your OEM O-ring and gasket that came off. Using a combination of cutters and needle nose pliers, remove the 7 mounting clips attaching the wiring harness to the black bracket on the passenger side. Loosen and remove the 2 10mm bolts attaching this bracket to the passenger side strut tower. Once loose, remove the entire bracket from the vehicle. Let's start prepping the can for install. Take note of the 2 hoses and banjo fittings attached to the bottom of the can. These fittings come pre-torqued and are designed to swivel, so there is no need to tighten these fittings. Locate the mounting bracket, as well as the 3 mounting bolts with the 5mm Allen heads. Install the bracket onto the can in this orientation. Once snug, tighten these 3 5mm Allen bolts to 7 foot-pounds. As you can see, the can has many different bolt holes for an array of applications. We found on the VA chassis Subarus, this location works best. Next, locate your drain line. This hose consists of 2 1/2-inch hoses wide into a 5/8-inch 90-degree hose. Install a 1/2-inch hose clamp at the base of each one of the 1/2-inch hoses. Also, install a 5/8-inch hose clamp onto your 90-degree hose like this. Pre-install an additional 5/8 hose clamp. Remove the 2 14mm bolts attaching the intercooler bracket to the block. Slide the left 1/2-inch hose through the hole in the intercooler bracket. Reinstall your intercooler bracket back onto the block. Install the 90-degree hose onto the new barb fitting on top of the block. Install the 5/8 inch clamp. Pre-install a 1/2 inch clamp onto the drain hose. This is the hose that goes through the intercooler bracket. Before we mount the can, run a bolt through each one of the mounting holes. This greatly decreases the chances of cross-threading when installing the can. With our mounting holes clear, we can now mount the can. Be sure to run the 2 pre-attached coolant hoses underneath the wiring harness. Use the 2 10mm mounting bolts that are provided with the kit. Now install the drain hose with the pre-installed clamp onto the bottom of the can. Install the clamp. Pre-install a 1/2 inch clamp onto the other hose attached to the block. Run this hose above the larger AC line and behind the smaller AC line, just like this. Install this hose onto the middle side port of the can. Then install the clamp. Next, locate the 3/8 inch PCV hose. As you'll notice, the valve located in this hose is not center, it is offset, which means the short end of the hose will go to the can, while the long end of the hose will go to the intake manifold. Locate the 3/8 inch 90-degree fitting. Install this fitting into the longer end of the hose, then install the clamp. Run the end of the hose with the 90-degree fitting behind both AC lines as shown. Install the open end of this hose into the right vent port on top of the can, then install the clamp. Install the 90-degree fitting end of this hose onto the intake manifold hose we rotated earlier. Install the clamp. Okay guys, stop right there. It's always good practice to make sure your hoses are cool to the touch and to relieve any excess coolant pressure off of your system before removing any coolant hoses. We will start with the longer of the 2 coolant hoses. Run the hose down to the turbo coolant line. Before installing, eye up the length of the hose and trim the excess with your hose cutters. Locate and pre-install your coolant hose clamp onto the end of this hose. With your pliers, slide the clamp up the hose of the coolant line. At this time, locate and remove the clamp from the upper end of the factory coolant hose located here. Install a pair of hose pinch pliers to the bottom of this hose to help minimize coolant loss. Before removing the coolant hose, use a cloth or a towel to cover up your turbo outlet as well as the open ports in the turbo inlet. Remove the coolant hose while simultaneously installing the new coolant hose from the can. With the factory coolant hose in hand, rotate the top of this hose on the fitting until the 90-degree angle on the hose faces the passenger side of the vehicle. Install the open end of this hose onto the remaining coolant line connected to the can. Install both OEM clamps back onto the hose. Then install the provided clamp down by the turbo. Now you can remove your hose pinch pliers, and don't forget to remove your rag or towel. Zip tie the 2 coolant hoses together and away from any obstruction. Clip the tail. Locate the OEM hose originally equipped with the white PCV connector and run it underneath the wiring harness like this. Locate the 5/8 vent hose with the 90-degree fitting found in your kit, as well as 3 of the 5/8 inch clamps. Install 2 of the clamps onto the hose like this, and your third clamp onto the OEM hose. Apply a dab of assembly lube to your 90-degree fitting. Now install this fitting into the OEM vent hose. Install the clamp. Install the open end of this hose into the bottom-most side port of the can. Now install the clamp. Now use a zip tie to secure these 2 hoses together. Cut the tail. Locate the 1/2 inch cap as well as your 3/8 inch clamp provided with your kit. Install the cap onto the topmost side port of the can. Then install your clamp. Locate the breather hose assembly provided with the kit. Install 4 1/2 inch clamps and 2 5/8 inch clamps as shown. Run the 2 1/2 inch hoses underneath the wiring harness and attach them to the 2 remaining vent ports on top of the can. Install both 1/2 inch clamps. Now we will reinstall our charge pipe, but before we do, inspect the factory O-ring to ensure that it's in good condition. Apply a dab of lube to our blow-off valve port. Install the charge pipe underneath the wiring harness. Line up the blow-off valve port with its corresponding hole in the turbo inlet. With a bit of pressure, push down until the blow-off valve seats inside the inlet. Reinstall the 2 12mm turbo outlet bolts as well as re-securing the clamp from the blow-off valve. Reinstall your blow-off valve vacuum line, as well as the evap purge line. Install the white PCV connector into the open end of our 5/8 inch vent line. Install the clamp. Return the white PCV connector back to the inlet and click it in. Using a zip tie, secure the breather hose away from any obstruction. Clip the tail. Now that all of our hoses are secure, here's an overhead view of what the install should look like. Reinstall our factory coolant fan and connector. With the fan secure, double check to make sure there's no interference between the vent hose and your fan blades. Reinstall your intake snorkel and hardware. Apply a dab of lube to each end of the intercooler, then install. Tighten the 2 intercooler clamps. Reinstall our driver's side intercooler bracket. Then install our 12mm intercooler bolt on the passenger side. Now you can reinstall the engine cover with the 2 clips. Finally, reinstall and tighten the negative terminal on our battery. That completes the install of our version 3 air oil separator on our 2019 WRX. But before we hit the road, we're going to start the car, check for leaks, and bleed the system if necessary. To bleed the system properly, we first must start the car. Once you start the car, immediately check for leaks. If no leaks are present, take your 1/8" Allen socket to the bleeder onto the back of the can. Partially remove this screw until coolant flows without aeration. Once there's no more air in the system, be sure to close the valve. Be sure to keep a close eye on coolant temperatures while performing this procedure. Now you can shut the car off. Once the car is cooled back down, remove the coolant cap and add any additional coolant as needed. Now that the coolant system is bled and we've checked for leaks, it's time to hit the road and have some fun. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe for more videos just like this one, and we'll catch you on the next one.